Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, based on wherever you are. We hope you've had a good day and you, as well as your family and loved ones, are doing well. On behalf of AIOG, I would like to welcome you for our weekly webinar series, which, as a reminder, happens every Wednesday. Today, we are lucky to have Jim Siprinsky with us, who will share some exciting details about his superpower, which is machine learning with Oracle Autonomous Database. Jim has nearly 4 decades of professional experience and has been an Oracle ACE director since 2014. He's an extremely sought after public speaker, so we are super excited to have him. Before we hand off to Jim, I would just like to remind you a few things. This webinar is being broadcasted on multiple channels. That is along with Zoom. You can find it on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as Twitter. So spread the word, tweet about it, share the information with your colleagues and friends. We appreciate it. The presentation will be shared with the registered participants. For all your questions, there's a Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen. Please use that and we will take up the questions during the Q&A time. Also request you to take a virtual selfie and tweet about it. This will help us thank Jim for his time. At the end of the session, we will run an online quiz. So looking forward for your participation in that as well. Let's see who wins the prize today. So with this, I think we're good to begin. Jim, could you kindly take over?
I'm ready to go.
All yours. Thank you.
All right, let me share my screen. Whoa, okay, we'll go with sharing my screen. Here we go. Well, good morning. Let me get my slide share working here. Can everyone see this okay? We looking good?
Yes, we can.
And how's my audio quality? I always like to check since I'm half a world away. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Great, great. Okay, well, thank you for having me. It's rather early on a Wednesday morning here. I know it's your Wednesday evening, wherever you are, especially if you're across the subcontinent. I appreciate the time to speak with you today. I haven't spoken to an AIOUG group since, I think, Sangam 17, if you've seen the lead-in picture to the presentation today. I think that was the keynote that I closed Sangam 17 with, if I remember correctly. I had a great time while I was in Hyderabad. Got to meet tons of wonderful people, and I'm happily surprised you asked me to come back. So my presentation today is rather aptly named, What's Your Superpower? Mine is machine learning with Oracle Autonomous Database. I've been doing a lot of work with Autonomous Database for the past several years now. Was one of the first folks to actually get involved with ATP, Autonomous Transaction Processing, Autonomous Database in dedicated mode about a year ago, actually more like 18 months ago. But as I started doing more and more presentations, I saw that my colleagues like Heli Helskayo from Finland had presentations with machine learning in them, and those presentations were backed, and mine, if I was up against Haley, I usually didn't get anybody at my presentations. So I decided to branch off and take a look at all this great machine learning stuff, and I'm here today to tell you more about that journey. A little more about myself. Thank you for the wonderful lead-in, by the way. That was really a great introduction. I've been doing information technology before it was called IT. I started out 40 years ago in a small company, essentially as a data entry clerk. I got an opportunity to learn an advanced fourth generation language back then in, I think, 1981, if I remember correctly. So almost 40 years ago. And from that point forward, I spent about 20 years as a developer, and I spent the last 20 years essentially as an Oracle DBA since 2001. True story about that, I actually got the opportunity. I was working as an independent contractor, working on Power Builder, which I know many folks in India are quite well aware of. But the DBA quit, and they said, well, you seem to know something about this Oracle thing. We're going live in production in 5 weeks. Would you like to become a DBA? Yes, I said, but I want to do it as a contractor. They said, no, you have to become a full-time employee. And I took, in 2001 dollars, a $40,000 a year pay cut to learn how to become an Oracle DBA, okay? Because I'm a professional and I master my craft. And proof of that is that I've got 4 OCPs, and I've also recently, about a year ago, got the ADW Cloud certification as well. I'm a big fan of certification if it's done the right way. Been an ACE director since 2014, spent a lot of time traveling across the world, not just India, Japan, New Zealand, several parts of the Middle East, even North Africa, and of course Europe and North America and South America. Waiting on Antarctica, one of these days, maybe. Also, I'm the ODTUG, which is the Oracle Development Tools User Group Database Committee lead, and I edit a portal called Techceleration. I just want to share that with you real quickly here. By the way, I know AIOUG is an extremely robust community, but ODTUG has a database community that offers an enormous amount of content as well. If you're interested in contributing some content, I'm the editor, please let me know, okay? It's going to have to be written in business English, and we do edit quite well, and we like to have practical information there as well. I'll send you links to these, but I just want to point out that we have an amazing array of articles here, and 2 articles that really flesh out what I'm going to share with you today are mentioned here as What's Your Superpower? Mine is Autonomous Database and Machine Learning, Part 1. Part 2, Part 3 should be out within the next couple of days. So I just wanted to share that with you, that that's one of the things that I do personally. But back to my point here, I do have a blog as well. I wish I kept it as updated as I did my articles and my other things, because I spend a lot of time speaking. I do at least 1 or 2 virtual webinars. If COVID-19 wasn't around, I would be traveling to conferences at least once every 2 weeks to speak. Here's my contact information. If you're going to snapshot anything, please snapshot that. Until recently, I was working for a company you've probably heard of, Viscosity North America. And I know if you're an AIOUG member, you probably have heard of them because my colleague Rich Nemec was actually at, I believe, Sangam 19, and I think he had the closing keynote, if I remember correctly. And I think he's done some presentations for you as well. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. I am not always politically correct, but that's okay. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. Feel free to connect up with me. I've written a few books. I shouldn't say written. I've co-authored a few books, including one that my colleague Charles Kim, who was my boss at Viscosity until about 3 or 4 weeks ago, co-wrote. It's the only book, PDB to Oracle Cloud, on the back cover that has 2 ACE directors having a beer together. Yes, that's true. Enough about me. Now that you understand where I am, let me tell you where we're going today. What I want to talk to you about is the future. And not like Rich Nemec likes to talk about the future. Rich gets way out over his skis. I'm going to stay kind of in over, just trying to stand straight up top and talk to you about what I think we're going to see as it applies to our careers. What does machine learning promise for us? How much do I really need to understand? And the answer is not that much. You don't have to be a data scientist to take advantage of this. In fact, if you're an Oracle DBA or if you're an Oracle developer, you're in exactly the right place to take advantage of it. I'll show you in under 10 minutes how to take advantage of these tools in something called Oracle Machine Learning that's part of Autonomous Database. I'll also talk to you about how you can use visual representation to see hidden patterns. I've got an excellent example that I'm actually using right now for a practical purpose. So I will share that with you. We'll also take a quick look at Oracle Analytics Cloud, one of my favorite little tools. And finally, I'm going to show you a little bit about how, if you're using Application Express, if you're a developer with that, and I'm a big fan of Apex, by the way. I've written a few small applications. When I was at Viscosity North America, my colleague Scott Spendolini had some great training. I learned more from Scott in 5 days than I did in 6 months of playing around with Apex. But guess what? If you're using OML or OAC, you can use Apex as well. And I'll show you a couple of quick examples of that. So let's get started. By the way, you may not know about this magazine. It's a big deal here in the United States. It's The Onion. It's actually online. It started as a little paper magazine in a town called Madison, Wisconsin, which is where the University of Wisconsin is home to that, to Madison, Wisconsin. And I saw this article about 3 or 4 months ago, and I said, it's perfect, right? Because data scientists, right, or burgeoning data scientists love this kind of stuff. 3 guys show up dressed with exactly the same color shirt. I wonder what the correlation is. Is this, what are the odds of this? Is it the probability, of this happening? Again, The Onion is a very sarcastic news magazine, if you will, but it's been around for almost 30 years. Warning, it's not for kids, but I really do love this little story that, again, probability researchers are confounded by 3 coworkers wearing the same color shirt on the same day. What are the odds of that? But that's the essence of data science, right? We see something that looks like a pattern. Is there a correlation between different variables? And if anything's made it obvious, it's COVID-19. I've been reading stories from Times of India and in the New York Times and the BBC, how different countries, including India, Iran, Italy, and my country, the United States, are dealing with COVID-19. And if it wasn't for data, we would be in much worse shape, right? Here in the United States, what we're trying to do is flatten the curve and keep it flattened. And we're doing miserable at that, all right? We've had over 103,000 people die from COVID-19. It's one of the highest death rates in the world. But at least we know where the hot spots are, and we know what the causes are, and we can analyze it with machine learning and analytics. One of the things I want to stress to you, if you're in Oracle DBA today and you're nervous about where things are going, don't be. But be aware of the challenges that you have. And again, I'm speaking as an Oracle DBA today, but also trying to think as that new machine learning assister, if you will. One of the things that CIO magazine brought out about Oracle databases and databases in general is that 90% of application developers say that updating databases delay the release of an application. One of my colleagues that I heard speaking in Oracle Cloud Day said, slow is the new down. And I would say that anything that slows application development and getting answers to business is the new down. But check this out. 4 out of 10 DBAs today are handling 50 or more databases. Very few of them are using automation. And almost 3/4 of IT budgets today, this is recent data, folks, this is from 2019. 72% of IT budgets are spent on maintenance versus innovation. We're spending time and money keeping lights on. That doesn't make things better. And we can't keep going this way. However, here's the good news. DBAs know mostly, pretty well, maybe even at a master's level, where the data is inside your organization and where it's not, where it's internal and where it's external. They know all these things. As a DBA myself, I probably know a lot more about the data that's being loaded into a system than, in cases, the developers and even the business analysts responsible for that data. More importantly, I know how clean or dirty it is. This is another aspect of data science that a lot of people don't understand. Data scientists complain, 9 out of 10 data scientists complain that 90% of all data is crap because it's not properly cleansed, reorganized, kept clean, right? If you have a column, for example, in a table like gender, most people would say there's only 2 values, male and female. However, what if somebody decides not to report a gender? Yeah, that's true. And actually, in many countries, including Australia and I believe India as well, there's actually a third gender, X, for transgender, for someone that's transitioning between those genders. It's legally required to have that, right? So here's the aspect that I'd like you to think about. DBAs are the best arbiters of getting clean data to data scientists. And here's another aspect. I love this book that I've been reading. It's called Range, okay? And it talks about the fact that Nobel laureates are more than 20 times likely to have some other hobby, some other fascination. I love the fact that maybe a physicist might be a magician. I really think that's so cool. And I think it was Arthur C. Clarke, this famed science fiction author, that said, advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So if you think about that, somebody that works at CERN or Fermilab, magician might be a good tool, right? So again, generalists are going to be very popular in the next several decades. You may not know this, especially folks if you're from India and you don't know a lot about American history, right? There was this General McAuliffe. He was at a battle in Germany called Bastogne. My father-in-law actually was at Bastogne. He passed away many, many years ago. But here's the key thing. The Germans had the Americans completely surrounded at Bastogne. They were trying to break out during World War II. It was the last gasp of the Nazi regime. And the Germans went to McAuliffe and said, "You are completely surrounded, you should surrender." And McAuliffe replied with "nuts," because he was going to use a swear word, but he didn't use it. He didn't swear. He also then turned to his command staff and said, "We have the enemy exactly where we want them. We can attack in any direction." And if you're a DBA or an apps developer or an Oracle developer at any kind of place, this is where you're at. You can attack in any direction. And what are you going to attack with? Machine learning, analytics. If data is the new oil, and the data scientists are the miners, you know, the guys that are actually producing something useful, whatever it might be, gasoline, kerosene, whatever, something from that fossil fuel, the DBAs are the guys out in the oil fields rigging up all of the pipe and rigging up the oil derricks or whatever to facilitate that. If you haven't read The Signal and the Noise, by the way, by Nate Silver, he runs a website called 538.com. It's based here in the United States, if I remember correctly, but it talks about all kinds of things in terms of probabilities and statistics, even sports statistics, right? He's very much into this. He's also quite accurate at predicting elections. In the 2016 election, the morning of the presidential election, he said Donald Trump had a 1 in 4 chance of winning the election as of that morning based on polling. And by the way, that's 2 coin flips. He wasn't that far off, right? So it wasn't a complete and utter surprise to him that Donald Trump won. To many voters it was, but it's because they misunderstood probability with percentage of election, percentage of votes coming in, right? They thought when he said he only has a 25% chance of winning, they meant that he only was going to get 25% of the vote. That's not what happened, right? He actually got less popular vote than the other candidate. He talks a lot about predictability and how important it is that we get this right. It's a great book to read if you don't know a lot about analytics and the models behind them and what they can predict and what they can't. And that's really what we're trying to do with Apex, AI, and ML. I show this slide in every presentation I do these days. At the heart of what we're going to do in the future, I don't care where you are right now, I'm talking about the future, is an autonomous database. Why an autonomous database? And I'm not going to spend extra time on autonomous databases today, but I want you to understand why. Remember that slide 2 or 3 slides ago? All the time spent on maintenance? You don't need a DBA for an autonomous database. Not to keep it up and running, not to back it up, but you might need to restore. Okay, you might need a moderately skilled DBA for that. You still need somebody to analyze the data and build the tables and partition properly and create indices the right way, unless it's an ATP instance, in which case it can create its own secondary index with something called automatic indexing. Did you know about that? Yeah. But here's the point that I'm trying to make, folks. You don't need a DBA if you have an autonomous database, and that's not a bad thing. I'd much rather spend time on the data and getting the data clean and getting it ready for my developers so they can access what they need to do. And how are they going to go after it? I'm a big fan of free. Apex is free. Oracle Application Express is absolutely, utterly free, okay? You can take an Excel spreadsheet and directly import it into an Apex application. Not necessarily the business logic, but certainly the data and its structure directly into an application. That's pretty powerful stuff. But wait, there's more. Oracle actually has something really powerful called a REST API. That REST API simply does get, post, delete, create, delete, and other posts, right, using HTTPS inside of Apex, but also outside. There's a new tool coming in. In fact, I'm teaching a class on this new tool. It's called Visual Builder, Oracle Visual Builder, which only uses the REST API. And by the way, you can call this REST API from other places as well, right? If you combine that with ORDS, you now have what's called a low-code environment. And that's the thing I really want to emphasize here. Where are we headed? Getting the data out there so people can analyze it. We want to become data-driven. You know what happens when you go with your gut instead of the data? You get indigestion. That's what happens, right? We have in our country, the United States, an administration that's going with its gut and going with what they believe instead of the facts in many cases. And that's why we're in such trouble with COVID-19. That's why we've had so many more people die than needed to die, because they didn't listen to the data scientists. They didn't listen to the scientists, period. That's part of the problem. But my point is, going forward with the problems we've got to solve, my friends, we've got to start going after the data. We've got to start going after the data and understanding where all this comes together. Okay, enough introduction. Let's get into it. If I have an autonomous database, I can easily gather data, and I can easily analyze that data using several dozen, about 25, roughly, depending on how you want to count it, algorithms. This is a cheat sheet, by the way. I've got the link at the bottom. It's a live link. By the way, you will get these slides too. Sai already has them. I sent them on to him. There are numerous different machine learning algorithms that you can apply. Some are what are called supervised, some are what are called unsupervised. I'm going to show you a couple today that are supervised, which means I have to put some intelligence into it, right? Which one should I use? Here's something interesting coming in 20C. You're not even going to need to ask that question. Most of the stuff I'm going to show you today is 19C, but 20C is actually going to have something that's going to let you intelligently figure out which algorithm to apply. But the reason I showed you this is there are numerous different algorithms that you can gather. I've spent time in a couple of the presentations coming up with explicit semantic analysis. Exponential smoothing method, not semantic analysis. I also, in my article series, talk about decision tree, right? Just to look at two of them. But there are literally 24 different algorithms. And the idea behind this cheat sheet is, here's what you can do. What do you want to do today? Where do you want to go today? You've got these algorithms. And how hard is it to build them and to take advantage of them? Well, let's take a quick look. This is inside Autonomous Database. I'm on the administration panel. There's something here called Manage Oracle ML Users. I click on that inside Autonomous Database console, and it says, what do you want to do? I'm going to make a new user called AIML, Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning Noob, AIML Noob. Here's my name. Here's my email address. Please change the password when I get that, right? So pretend I'm a brand new user, not just the DBA. I get an email that says, hey, you want to access this? Good. I click into it. It says, Please give me your new password and confirm it. I don't have to do anything else. I now have a schema, my own personal schema called AIML Noob inside this autonomous database. And I'm ready to access the data. OML, remember I told you it was only going to take 10 minutes. OML uses something called Zeppelin notebooks. Here's the desktop. You can see it on the left-hand side of the screen, right? They use something called notebooks, but there are a lot of other things I can do here. I'm going to focus primarily on notebooks and examples today. But you can also run SQL statements from inside here. You can run a complete script, for example, to create a data model, and you can schedule jobs. Today, we're just going to get up and running here. So I go into this particular screen. I click on notebooks. It goes, do you want a workspace? I can create my own workspace inside my AIML Noob schema. Do you want to create a project? Because I could have multiple projects, right? If I'm going to build a new project and I'm going to point this at a particular schema called TPCE. It's from the Transaction Processing Performance Council's TPCE workload that I built as part of my research for OLTP. I specify some basic details about the project because the TPCE model is all about stock trades, right? It's basically a high volume stock trading system, trading equities, bonds, whatever it might be, specifically equities if I remember correctly. And once I've created that project, I now create my first notebook. What am I going to do? I'm going to look for some trends. And by the way, it's a stock trading application and schema, if you will, right? What am I going to be looking at? How about if we just look at what are the top types of transactions that are occurring? And basically, there's only about 5 different transactions in this model, and I'll show you those in just a moment. What I'm going to do here, now I'm over here on SQL Developer, and I'm granting, notice, to AIML Noob privileges, select privileges, on about 24 tables. These are the sum total of tables that I really need to access to be able to run this particular query. And on the right-hand side here, I'm building a query that's basically pulling out a boatload of data for a 3-month period in 2005. It's sample data. It's not real data, right? But we're using this as an example. Yeah, there's a lot of joins that have to happen here. Why? It's an OLTP system, believe it or not. That's what TPCE is really designed around. I've never worked on an OLTP system. It's always a hybrid system. There's always somebody that wants to get data out of that OLTP system, right? Because they need it now instead of waiting until the ETL load happens, right? If you're a DBA, your head shaking, yes, right now, aren't you? Yes. But anyway, I build that query, and one of the things that's really cool about OML, it has the concept of paragraphs. What's a paragraph? Well, it's essentially a call to a database, really a call to a data source, to be a little bit more accurate. The idea behind paragraphs, think with me here, is the idea is that we're building a story, a narrative, right? Just because I'm analyzing stocks doesn't mean that there's not additional data that I might want to gather. Maybe I want to have a couple of different graphs or a couple of different reports, and you can execute those as separate paragraphs. Just to show you the query that I showed you before, boom, here's the data. It comes back in a matter of about, in this case, I think about 15 seconds, right? And notice under TTID, T underscore TT underscore ID, there are several different transaction types. TLB stands for limit buy. TMB stands for market buy. TLS stands for a limit sell order. TMS is a market sell order. In other words, market sell. Hey, call up my broker, log in at fidelity.com, whatever it is, sell my stock, right? But again, the transactions built in for TPCE are actually designed, the TPCE workload is designed to simulate automatic trades, right, based on algorithms, as well as a broker-initiated trade based on my instructions to my broker or a customer accounts trade. All I want to do is see, hey, give me an idea of how many equities have been traded within these 5 different categories. I want to see what the mix is, and I'm able to create a simple graph in a matter of minutes. Look at this. It's a simple little pie chart. I'm not a big fan of pie charts, right? They don't really tell me anything except basically a simple distribution. But within transaction type and the number of stocks sold, right, total quantity sold for that limited time period, I've already got some information out of here. And look at this. By simply dragging the AD_CTRY, stands for country. By the way, this model has data from only 2 countries, the United States and Canada. Don't know why. Maybe that's all they wanted to model, right? But I can also now see, by simply dragging that into the groups box down there, that, okay, now here's the breakout within country and type of transaction code. And I can even mouse over that slice of the pie and see that, okay, about 10% of the trades, market sell trades in Canada, were in Canada, right? And here's the total quantity. And if you're thinking like I am right now, you're going, oh, big deal. I could do this in Excel, and that's exactly the wrong way to think about it. Because the whole point of our path forward is to bring the code to the data. This is all happening essentially next to and inside the database. I don't want to suck the data out, send it over the internet, possibly to have it corrupted or stolen, to an Excel spreadsheet on my local machine, or to a CSV file, if you will, that I now load into an Excel spreadsheet so I can do a pie chart. No, I want to keep it internal. By the way, somebody else might be interested in this graph, and I could share it with them. Yeah, that's the idea. Maybe I don't like pie charts. I say, I don't like them that much. Give me a stacked bar graph. Yeah, all I do is come up into the little settings area up there and say, make it a stacked bar graph. One of the things about OML that I'm hoping is going to improve is we're going to get better graph capability. There's about 7 to 10 different graph presentation types, but I'm believing those are going to expand. And I'll show you another option with OAC in just a minute if you want to get more sophisticated. But I can easily change just about any factor here. By the way, I could also say, hey, I don't want to just see total quantity. Maybe I want to do a line graph that shows me the maximum and minimum bid price and maximum and minimum trade price, right? Again, a numeric factor. I can simply drag those in there and then change the type of value from sum or to count, to average, to min, to max, whatever, and graph it on this same screen if I wanted to. Again, extremely flexible. The point I'm trying to make here is it's really easy to get visualizations. And believe me, that's what a data scientist is most interested in. Back to our algorithmic discussion. What if I don't know anything about machine learning? So learn. Here you go. One of the things that's really cool is the examples that are provided. Forget the My First Notebook, that's how to build a notebook. But here are 8 basic classes of machine learning algorithms. The one I'm going to show you right now is called a time series forecast. I'm going to show you the actual examples, and I'm going to show you the results that I built. And it took me no more than 5 to 10 minutes to learn how to deploy a time series forecast. And this is the kind of stuff that data scientists are interested in. Key point I want to stress here. It's going to be on the quiz. Hint, hint. Data scientists are or I should say, let me restate that. Oracle Machine Learning is primarily aimed at data scientists, experienced data scientists. Oracle Analytic Cloud, OAC, is aimed at citizen data scientists. So just remember that, right? This is designed for people that already understand how to do data mining and understand how to use Oracle machine learning altogether, right? So moving on here for a bit. Here's the actual examples, right? It says, oh, you want to build a machine learning algorithm. One of the things I love, the reason I've got that red box up there is if you're a data scientist and you go, what am I trying to get to? I need time series. This graph, right? Remember, for data science and data scientists, it's the visualization that matters because that's where we're going to see things. Oh, yeah, okay, I get it. We're going to look for a trend, and I want to also be able to forecast based on what's already happened in the past by applying what's called the exponential smoothing algorithm. The example code on how to do this is right here. All you have to do is copy that code, modify it for your particular schema or whatever it might be, and you can build your own models. And guess what? That's exactly what I did. To show you here, you can actually execute the exact code that you need inside the worksheet itself. It will return to you and show you the settings that it used for machine learning. Now, if you're new to machine learning, you may go, I don't know what optimization crit means, and that's okay. It's heavily documented, and your data science team will know, because these algorithms are actually quite sophisticated mathematical models, and the modeling themselves are very well documented in the Oracle documentation. So again, you don't have to worry about what all those things are made, but where these settings come from, Oracle knows how to set them. Oracle has default settings. So for example, confidence level, right? It has a default of 0.95. In most cases, that's sufficient for everything that you're going to be doing. So the idea here is that you don't need to be a data scientist expert to build your first model. And if you're already an expert data scientist, you can understand exactly how this works. There are tons of different information about this. I already showed you a little bit of this. Here's the different attributes that we're actually modeling. Here's the result of the diagnostics and quality of the forecast model. In the third article series that I'm doing, I actually take a look at a particular model and then tear it apart and go, how well did I do? How many false positives and false negatives do I have? And guess what? The DBMS data mining package, which is central to all data modeling in this environment, even has simple methods to deploy that will let you create tables or create a data dictionary view that has information about it, about how accurate or inaccurate your model is. Looking on, I want to draw your attention to the fact that the actual amount sold column for those last 4 quarterly periods has nothing in it. That's because we don't have any data beyond 2001, the end of 2001. Well, where does that forecast come from? A data model itself. And to show you this visually, here's the actual example. Everything on that far right-hand side is essentially projected. It's a prediction within, note, an upper and lower bound, right? If you've been watching any of the graphing going on with COVID-19, right, they always have that, let's flatten the curve, and there's that confidence interval, right? If we don't do this, here's where things are going to end up. But if we do it, we're going to have between X deaths and X deaths, as compared to if we don't do anything at all, right? So there's a confidence interval here that says, projecting forward, our actual amount sold is going to be somewhere between here. The trend line we think is here, that blue line, but the light brown and the dark brown lines are plus and minus, right? Here's the range in which our confidence interval exists. I took that same information and applied that against a different table in a totally different system. And I built exactly the same thing. Everything I showed you up before step 11 here has been precursor. What I'm showing you here actually is I applied a similar model against a different system. I also have access to the TPC DS, Decision Support Model, inside another Oracle database, right? And I basically took some data for a different time period, and I projected forward, I believe, 2 years or 18 months, if memory serves, right? And what I've got here is a different projection, right? It doesn't look like that other graph, right? The idea here is I took data from another system. I knew nothing about the data in the system and projected forward how particular sales might advance or regress. Again, with the same confidence levels here. Now, as a data scientist, the first thing that data scientist is going to do, hey, what's going on there in 2003 January? Why do I have that sudden decrease? That looks like an anomaly. That's why we visualize. And by the way, there are machine learning algorithms to apply to understand what happened there. What happened there is we didn't have any data after late October in the year. And therefore, there could be a false prediction based on that, right? We may be underestimating sales for October in a future period, but that's what a good data scientist would do. They would now look at that and go, something to investigate. That's why visualization is so crucial, right? That's why it's so crucial. Enough about OML. Again, OML is aimed at professional or burgeoning data scientists, people that really understand it. I want to show you now OAC. Now, one thing to understand, OML is included in Autonomous Database. Included, like, tires are included with your car when you buy a subscription to your car, right? When you buy your car. Yeah, it's included. OAC is not free. There's an additional cost to licensing OAC. However, it has some interesting features. OAC is aimed at anybody. Really, it's aimed at a citizen scientist. It doesn't mean that a data scientist couldn't take advantage of it, but someone that doesn't know a lot about cleansing data, right? OML assumes that we're working on a data warehouse, right, where the data's been cleansed, or at least we know where the anomalies might be in it. What if you don't know anything like that? I've got a practical example here in the next 20 minutes I'm going to share with you. Hang in there. We're almost done. Using Oracle's solution, putting our data in an autonomous data warehouse. In truth, you could also put it inside ATP, right? Again, it doesn't really matter where it is as long as it's in an autonomous database. I can pair it with Oracle Analytics Cloud. And like they say, it's self-service analytics. Where can I get the data from? From an Oracle database. Sure, load it into my autonomous database. I could also get it from, note down here in the left-hand corner, enterprise applications. I could also get it from other external data sets. And here's where the role of DBA really comes in critical, my friends, especially in 19C. Our advice when I was at Viscosity was stand on 19C. 20C is great, but it's the latest and greatest. You don't want to be a pioneer necessarily, right? If you need the feature, sure, but get to 19C. It's going to be the most stable and longest supported release through 2026 first quarter. You want to get there. You can make the jump to 20C as you need to, but get to 19C so you can take advantage of all these things. One of the things that's in 19C is the ability to easily describe external sources. It's already available in late 18C and early 19C, but you can do things like partitioned external tables. You can even do hybrid partition tables in 19C. Take a look at that if you haven't seen it. Literally a one DDL statement, create table statement that has data from both in RDBMS, intra-RDBMS tables, really as partitions, and external file partitions. Again, this is part of the converged database strategy that Oracle's marching towards. I just wanted to give you their big picture. And now I'm going to tell you about a real use case. I'm working here in the United States for a political campaign. I'm volunteering. We have a challenge. Our candidate was elected in 2018. He's in a battle with a candidate from the other party. He happens to be a Democrat. The other candidates are Republican. We're trying to identify flippable voters. This blue outline on that map up there is the district that we live in. The United States has something called gerrymandering, where the state governments are able to draw districts to put like voters, as they like to say, in the same district, which gives a congressional candidate a better chance of being elected. That's the theory. It's also quite wrong, in my opinion, and we're trying to change that in many of our states. But right now, we've got to go find flippable voters because it's going to be a close election. I also need, in a political campaign, and I know you're not supposed to talk about politics and religion, so we'll skip religion, but politics makes sense. I'm talking to folks here in India from the world's largest democracy. You know how important it is to vote, right? We know it here too. We've rediscovered that. Trying to figure out which voters to reach out to and how successful your messaging are is also important. And finally, we got tons of volunteers. And the joke about Democrats here in the United States is that if they organized a firing squad, they'd line up in a circle. the joke is that I'm not a member of an organized political party. I'm a Democrat. What I'm saying there is that we have a lot of people who are ideologically disparate, and they all want to help. Unlike the Republican Party, which basically is focused on maybe 4 or 5 key issues, they're much better at staying organized. So keeping people excited and organized and involved is a bigger challenge for Democrats than Republicans. It's just the nature of the difference of the two parties. Not saying one's better than the other, right? But even things like trying to figure out where to put yard signs or where to put signs supporting our candidate can be extremely difficult. And trying to get the people out there to actually do the work, right? Especially with COVID-19. And we can't, literally have people come into a place to pick things up. We have to send things out. This kind of information is perfect for the cloud. It's absolutely perfect for the cloud. And one of the reasons is that encryption is crucial, right? This is a crucial election for this particular candidate and for my country. And people are going to play dirty tricks on each other. We need to make sure that the data is kept in a centralized place so that someone can't steal that data and see what's actually happening inside the campaigns. So I'm doing everything here I'm going to show you in the cloud. I was able to get access to voter data. Let me be specific. In Illinois and in many states, we have something called a closed primary system, which means that when you go to your polling place, you must say, I am voting as a Republican. They say, great, here is your ballot. It's a Republican-only ballot. You can only vote for Republicans. Same thing for Democrats, same thing for independents and a few other smaller parties, right? I'm sure you have a similar system wherever you are, right? But the fact that you declare as a Republican, Democrat, or independent is recorded. It's public record. Not who you voted for. That's sacred. We don't know that. But we do know who you're likely to vote for based on your party affiliation as declared. So I took a bunch of this data, I loaded it into an autonomous database, and I also broke out some of the other designators here as well, because the data that was coming in actually had one column, very interesting, right, as a burgeoning data scientist, called race designation, and it's glommed together. I don't know what white low means, or Hispanic medium, or Asian high. I don't know what that means. As best I can tell, it seems to be an income level. So they glom two things together, right? They also glom two things together in something called the likely party, like LR. I thought that was instructions on how to open my locker, right? Left, right. No, it stands for leaning Republican. Okay, well, which party does that really mean? I needed to break that down. So I took the select statement, did some experimentation, and built a view. Check this out. With Oracle Analytics Cloud, remember, not free, aimed at citizen scientists like me, citizen data scientists, I accessed a particular database. I selected which schema to gather that data from. In my case, it's a schema called VEVO, VIVO, for vote early, vote often. I tell you why in my article. I then selected that view. I created a view called Voter Cluster Demographics that contained all that information. Remember those columns I just showed you in the select statement? There's the columns. How does it know this? It's accessing the schema and the table to find that information. And then it says, okay, which columns do you want? I said, give me everything. And it loaded them up and says, hey, here's your data. This is step one, by the way. Step one is gathering the data and analyzing the data for how good or how convoluted the data might be. Remember, citizen scientists, they don't know anything about data cleansing. They don't know anything about the fact that the race designation seems to have two pieces of information that we really need to break out. This thing can actually do some of that analysis. Here's a list of that data at a certain level, right? It actually shows me this is a result of looking at that data. But wait, because I want to show you live what this actually looks like. So I'm just going to go in. I've already got in OAC, Oracle Analytics Cloud, I'm going to go open this particular data source. And it comes up. It's already at this stage, but I wanted to share this with you. Take a look at this, gentlemen and ladies. Look, it says, hey, that column called race designation, which is right here, That thing's convoluted. You should break it apart. You see that it actually thinks it can do it for me. Here's the one I love. Hey, I've got a postal code here in the United States. We call it a zip code, right? Watch this. It goes, did you want to enrich this with a latitude and a longitude? 2 mouse clicks, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't have to do anything beyond those 2 mouse clicks, and I now have the latitude and the longitude for that zip code. Now, it'll be the center point of that particular zip code, but what can I do with this? I can use these data if I wanted to. I can save this right now as it exists and graph map-wise if I wanted to. More on that mapping coming up in about 5 minutes, because I'm going to show you how I can leverage that, not necessarily inside here, but inside Apex. But I just want to share with you how powerful this thing is, right? This is actually telling me all kinds of things that can enrich this data with. By the way, noticing it says, hey, would you like me to tell you what state it is? Trust me, it's Illinois, the state I live in, right? I know this. But I can even add things like time zone or county or state or whatever else. That is powerful stuff, and that's just based on zip code, a postal code. That's how smart this tool is. Back to my presentation. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you. Here's basically what I just did. It lists out all the different columns. By the way, it also highlights which ones are numeric, voter count and age, last time I checked. Yeah, no matter what they tell you, by the way, you know, they say 30's the, 40's the new 30, right? 50, if you're 50 years old, is really the new 40. Let me tell you, 60, 60. Okay, I'm just going to tell you from personal experience. Anyway, that was a joke. I'm old, is what it comes down to. What's really cool about OAC, again, not a free package, but it's really neat. You can do all types of visualizations. So remember, I showed you all these data. I want to know who my voters are, not at a person by person level, but where are they distributed in terms of all kinds of metrics. Check this out. I say this is a project, so I can go back to it later. And this is the kind of graph that has data scientists drooling or going, oh, I get it. Check this out, folks. This graph, by the way, what it did is it assigned certain icons. Triangles happen to be an ethnicity or race of white, Caucasian. Squares are African American or black. What are some of the other ones here? Oh, circle is Asian, right? Again, self-designated racial designations here in the United States. We have about 5 to 30, depending on which classification you use. But here's the key thing. What I see from here is, by the way, the larger the triangle or circle or square is, it says more. What am I graphing here? How many voters are which age group, and also which party affiliation and which race? I'm graphing 4 different pieces here and distributing across all these metrics. And it's very interesting that, okay, younger folks tend to be Democratic. Yeah, okay. And then older folks tend to be from the GOP or the Republican Party, with the largest group here, right, within, and again, this is within the individual age ranges, how many, right? This is the kind of graph that for a data scientist, they just go, how did you do that? And you as the citizen data scientist go, I just put it on the graph. By the way, if I tried to drop something here where it wouldn't make sense on this right-hand part of the screen here, where I've got the trellis rolls and the values for the y-axis, OAC would go, no, that's stupid. That doesn't make sense. You can't use that in this particular attribute. I was able to pull this graph together in under 10 minutes. Again, I had to gather the data, but once I had this, I built a pretty sweet little distribution. By the way, if you want to get off to a quick start, back when I was at Viscosity, we actually built 2 really short videos under 5 minutes that essentially show you all of these steps dynamically, right? These are bit.ly links to YouTube videos. You can just click on those, boom, you'll be right inside there if you want to take a look at this. I have a few minutes left. I added this in because I wanted to share this with you. What if you're doing Apex? You're going, oh, do I have to do all this stuff in OML or OAC? Here's the thing I want to get through to you. All these things are objects inside a database. They're objects inside a particular schema. And if you're using Apex, you can access the same schema objects that OML and OAC either create or already use. So for example, I can take the same data that I created as part of building either the OML or OAC models and use them inside Apex. I don't need to build new stuff. And in fact, if I'm using Apex, guess what? I've got access to similar graph formats inside Oracle Analytics Cloud. Remember that I said OML doesn't have quite the same graphics capability as it stands right now. And they may expand that later, but OAC has a lot more different graphs. Guess what? So does Apex. And just to show you, I talked about flippable voters, right? Well, I built a model in part 2 and part 3 of my article series. Here's the result of those flippable voters. And by the way, this is something called lift. The idea here is as I get farther to the right, that's a better chance that a voter that I've identified in a particular quantile has a higher chance of becoming my target voter, somebody that I could switch from one party to my desired party based on a machine learning algorithm called decision tree. I built this into an Apex application. And in fact, I can change the number of quantiles here dynamically and click on Run Model and see what the difference is, right? If I want to cut my groups of flippable voters into smaller chunks, for example. And here's the other part I love about Apex. These are data coming from a table that gets produced as part of testing the decision tree model that I mentioned, and I can get a handle on how accurate the probability thresholds are, for example, and other factors in terms of how much lift has been provided. Now, again, that's a much more complex discussion. That's why I've written articles on it. But I just want to share with you, Apex is perfect for doing this kind of stuff, right? So again, I can work in OML, work in OAC, and still use Apex to take advantage of that. And finally, once in a while, you might want to know where people are, right? I've identified, for example, in this particular map on Google Maps, except it's not just Google Maps, folks. Do you see it? This is actually inside an Apex application. I'm using something called an Apex plugin that my colleague and fellow ACE, Oracle ACE, I should say, Jeff Kemp in Australia has written. I've had a few conversations with him. And what I was able to do is leverage his mapping capabilities that he built in, and by plotting latitude and longitude of a particular set of voters, in this case, I'm looking for particular voters who are potential flippable ones. We're going to leverage this in other future application development that I'm working on for our campaign. This is a real world use case to identify people who live nearby other people that want to have a sign for the candidate placed on their front lawn. And you know, again, I talk a lot about elections. You may go, well, that's elections, that's politics. Hey, politics ain't much different from marketing, okay? You gotta know who your customers are, you gotta know where they live, you gotta know how far of a drive is it for your salesperson to get there. It really isn't that much different, right? The thing I love about talking about politics is, number one, it's my responsibility as a citizen, civic responsibility, but number two, a lot of the things that we have to do to talk to people in an election are not that different from sales, because not everybody's going to listen, right? And the one thing you don't want to do is waste time with people that don't want to hear your lesson and don't want to hear your message. So again, the point I'm trying to make here is Apex can leverage all of the stuff I've shown you. By the way, you can do mapping inside OML in a limited fashion, but in OAC for sure, you can do similar mapping. But be aware there are other things you can do inside Apex as well, and you can take advantage of the same objects you've created. I'm wrapping up here. Here's some really great pieces of information for you, by the way. OML has its own webpage. Take a look at it. That cheat sheet that I showed you half an hour ago or so has some really great information there as well about the different machine learning algorithms. There's a great blog post on OML here that'll kind of get you going. It's about a year old, but it's got the basics. My ODTUG article series, part 3 is coming out, I think, in less than a day. It's a pretty long article, but you can start with part 1, transition to part 2, right? Or you can go to odtug.com/database and look at the Techceleration portal there. Some other stuff. Here's everything on Autonomous Cloud, OAC. You can go right there. By the way, remember, Oracle has its always free layer. That means you can test this stuff. You can experience Autonomous Database for no charge. Remember, that's how always free works. As long as you will periodically go in and say, oh, is my database alive, right? They will not blow away your database. You only got 20 gig of space, but you can do a lot with 20 gig, trust me. I don't even need more than a gig to do what I was just sharing with you. There's also an autonomous hands-on lab if you want to play with Autonomous Database. The machine learning on what we used to call Oracle Technology Network, several different tutorials, and a lot of great examples right here on Oracle Analytics Cloud. Remember, again, OAC, not free. OML, part of Autonomous. Apex, always free, wherever it is. And with that, I'm just going to leave my contact information up here for a few more seconds. If you do want to contact me, it is exactly the bottom of my hour. Well, actually, it is the top of your hour, and I'm going to turn it back to our team.
Thanks, Jim. Why don't you pick some questions from Q&A panel?
Sure, let me get into that, if I remember how to do that. Here we go. Okay, some great questions. Okay, let me take the second one first. Which role should the DBA choose, data scientist or data engineer? I don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. It depends. I'm in my late 60s. I'm a DBA right now. Should I pick one of these? I think I'm going to stick with DBA and get through it. Data scientist or data engineer? If you head towards the data scientist role, you're going to need to learn quite a bit about advanced mathematics and everything else. If that's something you enjoy, absolutely pursue it. But data engineer, think about this. You're kind of like the middleman, right? You're kind of the person that's in between the guy that's growing the crop and the person that's consuming it. I like data engineer. I actually call it data science enabler or data science engineer. Great question. Prakash's question, does OML Notebook also support unsupervised learning? I believe it does, because I'd have to double check on that, Prakash, but it depends on the algorithm that you've picked, right? So I believe it does support unsupervised learning. Karthik had a question, the first question on our list. How to migrate Apex from 11.204 on premises to 19C in Autonomous Cloud DB? Great question, but a little bit out of scope here because we're really talking about something else. If you want to catch me offline, we can talk about that. And anyway, Apex you're saying 11.204 on premises database, right? I need to know the version of Apex that you're talking about, right? Are we talking about Apex 18.1.2 and so forth? But essentially, remember, Apex lives as a schema inside a database, right? So the answer is it depends. Sorry, not a better answer I can give you there. Options for retraining the model. Jumping down to Prakash's other question. Yeah, actually, the decision tree model that I wrote quite a bit of stuff on was quite interesting. You can actually, for example, in decision tree, build a representative sample of, say, 60% of the data, and then take the other 40% of the sample data, right, or I should say 40% of the representative population, and apply it to see how the model would respond. I hate to say this, but the documentation is excellent on explaining that. One of the things that's really been helpful to me was the data mining concepts guide. And again, that has a very high level bunch of information on how that stuff works. But you're going to have to dive deep into the DBMS data mining documentation as well to understand parameters and so forth. Great question, Prakash. Mukesh asks, how essential is it for DBAs to learn ML algorithms? kind of goes back to that question about, am I going to become a data science enabler or data science engineer or a data scientist? If you're going to head towards the data science engineer angle, you got to at least understand how important it is to have clean data that you're going to be analyzing. Do you need to know the algorithms? There's only 25 of them. How in detail do you need to really analyze them? You better know at least how they work and what they're going to require. The ins and outs of the parameters, I'd leave that to the data scientists, right? What else? Let's see. Yogesh asks, how could a DBA train himself on machine learning if not using ADB? You don't necessarily need ADB to do that. In fact, you don't at all. ADB makes it very easy for you to, especially with the always free layer, to have a database that's running on Exadata, virtualized Exadata, right? Which gives you the best of all worlds, in my opinion, okay? And it's free. Did I remember that? I said free. So you could certainly take advantage of that. On the other hand, could you actually go ahead and use a standard schema? Oh, absolutely, sure. If you've got a database already, DBMS data mining is already there. So you could certainly use that if you want to. But again, I like autonomous because I don't have to worry about it being backed up. I don't have to worry about any of that other kind of thing at all there, right? It's already there for me, and it's free. That's one of my favorite parts. You hear that more from Oracle these days, right? Free, isn't that exciting? Felicidad Meneses says, any materials or reference to start and learn more on Apex? Oh my gosh, there's a ton of stuff out there. There's a lot of great blogs out there as well. A really good blog on that is by my colleague, Scott Spendolini. He's really, really, really good at learning Apex. There are tons of videos and vlogs and YouTube videos and everything you could possibly imagine on how to learn Apex. But the best way is dig in, jump in, practice a little bit, practice a lot. I learn something new about Apex every stinking day, to be serious. One other question here I got. Rahana Banu asks, Apex doesn't guarantee backup. Oracle doesn't support Apex backup and recovery. I'm not sure I understand that because I don't believe that maybe we're talking about the same thing here. Remember that actually it is possible to back up an Apex schema and recover it to a prior point in time. I believe my colleague Scott had a really good presentation on that. Another one is, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember Mark's last name. My colleague at Oracle, I can't remember his last name, I'm sorry. He's the one that gives out all the Apex stickers, right? Gosh, Mark, I can't remember Mark's last name, but that's driving me crazy. If you want, shoot me an email on that, Rehan Abano, and I'll see if I can get you some better information on it. But yeah, Apex does, I'm not sure if you mean backup of data or backup of the application code itself, right? Because remember, ultimately, Apex itself is essentially code stored inside the database. Okay, let's take that offline. I'll see if I can get you some other information. I got one other question. I believe at a high level, how can we correlate big data, Hadoop admin, and data engineers? I'm not sure, Kiran, exactly which direction you wanted to go with that. Yeah, I can speak to this briefly. The Hadoop aspect, right? If you've got Hadoop or you've got, say, for example, HDFS or Hive, right? You do have the ability, Hadoop maybe not so much, but certainly with Hive and HDFS, right? You've got the ability to, I guess with Hadoop as well. Yeah, I should say that. Describe, for example, a file that lives in HDFS in an HDFS file system. You can describe it with an external table as a table and access that data directly. If you've got something stored inside a Hive table, actually as a Hive table, you can, with Organization External, describe it as the Hive data source, right? It takes a little bit of coding to do, but it's doable. And the idea here is, again, start thinking about bringing code to data, not data to code, right? Leave it where it's at. Leave it where it's at, whether it's a CSV file or something residing on HDFS, heck, even in, you know, Amazon Web Services up in an S3 object store, right? Or any of these object stores. Oracle supports, as far as I know, dozens, if not several dozen ways of getting to external data. Leave it where it's at. Leave it, make sure it's secure, right? How many times a week do we hear about, oh, there's another breach and it's on some AWS unsecured server, right? Somebody puts a, you know, whatever, a MongoDB database on an unsecured, non-private AWS network or file system, and then somebody, oh, geez, they breached it. Well, it's kind of like, you know, leaving your car open and, you know, leaving an expensive laptop on the front seat and leaving it unlocked. You know, use the security that's there. You can take advantage of that security as well. Leave it where it's at. Access it with an external table, okay? Again, I know networking and, you know, time, you know, transmit time could be a factor as well. But yeah, that's a really great question. That's, I hope that kind of answers that question, right? Start thinking that way. Hope that makes sense. Anybody else? Any other questions, Sai? We've got about 5 minutes left, or do we have, I think we're at the end of question time, right?
Yeah, many thanks, Jim, for your time. We really enjoyed your presentation as always. Hopefully, we'll get your next presentation very soon. Oracle Groundbreaker Yatra is coming in July. A few things for participants, as suggested by Aishwarya, please use hashtag, and Jim Twitter ID is Jim the Y guy. And you can thank him by tweeting or posting in for Facebook. We will send you a speaker survey today or tomorrow. All registered participants request you to spend few minutes of your time and complete the survey, and then you are able to access the presentation. So I just want to stress here, once you complete the presentation, you'll find a hyperlink in the same in the survey itself. We'll not send a separate emails with the presentation, okay? We're also happy to issue a certification of participation if you attend all the webinars in the month. Reach out to webinar@aog.org. Now the exam time. So let's see how many of people actually going to participate in this quiz, right? Okay, so your job is to go to menti.com and use code 121387. So I'll wait for a few minutes and see how many are going to join today's quiz. One more minute. It's going to be fun, so please join. Don't worry, this is not like an Oracle certification exam. There are actually almost 100 people. I see only 27 people. Okay, I'll start the quiz now. Okay, here is go. So answer fast to get more marks. I'll stop reading. You can read. So 7 people answered the right question. Let's see who's actually in the leaders board. Excellent. The fastest is Moomin. Let's go to the next question. Thank you. 14 people answered the right one. Who's on leaders board? Amit is leading now. Let's see the next one. Super. Leaderboard. Guru Prasad is leading, and fastest is Chandan. Next question. Super. Leaders board. Guru is the fastest and he's the top. I think this is the last question. Okay, let's see winner. Wow, this is what happens. Prashant, thank you. Congratulations, Prashant. We will reach out to you for giving a voucher. And now, interesting topic. Who's coming next week? So next week, webinar from Rolando Carrasco from Mexico. Rolando is both Oracle's director and Oracle Groundbreaker ambassador, focused on modern technologies and architectures. He's going to talk about Oracle is going cloud native, how, an introduction to Oracle Cloud Native offering, right? And he's also going to cover a number of things: Oracle Kubernetes Engine, functions, streaming process, events, API gateway, and GraalVM. That's going to be a really interesting one. So please attend next week, 6 p.m. same time. Since it's based out of Mexico, so we can't ask him to 2 p.m. And the final update is a quick update on Oracle Groundbreaker Yatra 2020. Considering COVID-19, we are running Oracle Groundbreaker Yatra 2020 fully online. The event is actually planned for 15 days, so we will run around 13 days, excluding Sundays. It includes a deep technical education. We are planning as of now 6 sessions per day. It's almost going to cross 80 plus sessions. So we will open call for, so actually the call for papers are open now. So if you want to present, please submit your topics. And this is a wonderful opportunity to present globally. So submit papers before 7th of June. With this, we will end today's webinar. Thanks, Jim, once again for your support, and see you in OG Yatra, and bye for now. Thank you.